We are now in the third week of Advent, and this Sunday is called Gaudete Sunday in Latin, and it means rejoice. Rejoice because we are a little more than halfway through the season and Christmas is approaching. Today's readings focus on the desert, and again we're back to John the Baptist. Well, what we know about the desert is that it's empty, it's dry, it's barren, but when it does receive some rainfall, it immediately bursts into bloom. And that's what we'll hear in the first reading. Well, let's begin by looking at the gospel. John the Baptist this time is not in the desert, he's in prison. And he wants to make sure that what he has been speaking about in the desert is true. He wants to make sure that the one he calls mightier than he is truly the Messiah. And so he sends messengers to Jesus. And Jesus does not answer the question by saying, yes, I am, or no, I'm not. He does not refer to himself as the Messiah. He simply says to the messengers, well, what do you see happening? The blind see, the deaf hear, the lame walk, the dead are raised, and the poor have the good news preached to them. Is that evidence? Is that evidence that those who live in a desert are now experiencing fruitfulness in their lives? And that's the evidence that Jesus is the Messiah. Now, if we go to the first reading, we will find the whole reading is about the desert, from Isaiah chapter 35. First of all, he says, the desert and the parched land will exult. The steppe will rejoice and bloom. They will bloom with abundant flowers and rejoice with joyful song. And then Isaiah encourages the people that he's speaking to. Stand up, strengthen the hands that are feeble, make firm the knees that are weak. Say to those whose hearts are frightened, be strong, fear not, here is your God. So people speaking in the desert of their lives are not to be weak, but they're to stand up and recognize the presence of God even in the midst of a desert. Isaiah goes on to say, at that time, the eyes of the blind will be opened. The ears of the deaf will be cleared. Then the lame will leap like a stag. Then the tongue of the mute will sing. We surely can see the connection between this description of what's happening in the desert and the description in the gospel of what's happened with the coming of Jesus. And what does that mean for us today? Well, in many ways, in our culture, we live in a desert. There's a lot of talk today about atheism, people questioning the existence of God. Not a whole lot of talk about Jesus as we enter into the season of Christmas. Certainly there are a lot of people who are blind because they can't see the truth. A lot of people deaf because they haven't heard or listened to the Word of God. A lot of lame people who do not know how to walk in the way of the Lord. And a lot of dead people walking who need to be raised from the dead. What's the message for us? The message of Isaiah. Strengthen the hands that are feeble. Make firm the knees that are weak. And say to those whose hearts are frightened, fear not, here is your God. That's what the new evangelization is all about.